welcome back to another build video, this time inspired by my very own wonderful series, the World of Warcraft Tiny Town series, where all of the characters are my own World of Warcraft roleplay characters that I play and enjoy so much of on the server Moonguard. And this build was directly inspired by that and directly funded by my very first World of Warcraft Tiny Towner, who I just finished up his story, Daedric the Warlock, who contributed 50,000 simoleons to try to rebuild what you're seeing on the screen now in The Sims. This is one of my favorite places in World of Warcraft. It's a place I hang out probably 3 or 4 nights a week, and that is the Lion's Rest Fountain in Stormwind City. And the reason that I hang out there is because every night at 10 p.m. my time, which I think is 9 p.m. server time, we have the nightly G News. And you might ask, why G News? It was originally the Gnome News, and it was started about 17 years ago in Moonguard as just a nightly roleplay event and just a fun little time to gather. You hear all about the local server news. Now, it's no longer headed by gnomes. It is actually headed by Brielle and Looney, who are wonderful, wonderful characters, and they have been in charge of the G News as long as I've been on Moonguard, which is about 6 years now. It's a fun time. I think my favorite is the fact that they always manage to dress in holiday attire for whatever holiday is currently happening. Right now, they're in the Love is in the Air event attire. They're both dressed as love witches, the dark and the light. And Looney always announces any events that are going on every single night, and any local interest stories. Well, Brielle, he does the nightly recipe, and it's a lot of fun. It's really informative. It's a great place to just hang out and have some casual RP time, and I really wanted to see if I could recreate it inside of The Sims 4. Now, whether or not I really think that I did it justice, I'm not sure yet. That's going to be up to you guys, letting me know what you think of it. But I had a lot of fun doing this build. It was a challenge, and I think I used every single one of Daedric's 50,000 simoleons. The build is not completely finished yet because each character in my WoW Tiny Town will be adding to the build, but I was able to at least get the basics done. I think the hardest part of this build was all of the levels. Just trying to make all of the different levels so that the fountain area was actually down below where I wanted to build. This is also not exactly going to be a WoW accurate, at least where the building is concerned, because I also have to make it into a recreation center where all of my tiny towners live. And I found a cheat that actually lets it be listed as a recreation center, even though I've got people living there. Thank you, Google, for helping me figure out how to do that, because I would never have figured it out, and everyone would have just been living in the world's weirdest looking house, because that's what it would have had to be classified as. If you're curious, the way that you can do that is you have your Sims living on a residential lot, then you have another household that you control travel to that lot, and while they're traveling, you enter the cheat bb.enable free build and change it to whatever lot type you want, and then it works. So my tiny towners are now living at the Stormwind Recreation Center, which I've named Exiles Reach, just in honor of the new player starting area that they made a few years ago. And honestly, I think I did pretty good. Most of the money was actually spent on all of these build elements. So the recreation center itself is still really, really bare bones, as you will see once we get to that portion of the build. So much of this was just terrain manipulation and lifting things up and putting them back down. I fiddled with this, I fussed with it. It's funny, when you speed it up, it actually seems like it's going so much faster, but I think this build took me about 3 hours to do and actually get right. The magic of editing, am I right? Yeah, I'm definitely right. So you'll have to let me know what you think of this build when we get to the end. Drop it in the comments down below. Let me know if you've ever done any World of Warcraft builds. I'm having so much fun doing all of these World of Warcraft builds. None of them are ever exactly what things look like inside of World of Warcraft, but they're all close enough, at least in spirit. And isn't that what counts? I'm hoping that on everything I'm at least getting the vibes right. So one of the most important things about the Lion's Rest Fountain Square area is, of course, this central little tree area. And it took me a little while to get it right. I definitely, since I spend so much of my own time watching the G-News sitting on the wall, I wanted it to be up so that you could actually sit on it instead of being a fence. So I had to go back and do yet another ton of terrain manipulation. It was worth it, though. I think it turned out. My biggest regret is that I was not able to make the fountain that Brielle and Looney stand on actually have water in it. I ended up just painting the bottom of it blue and calling it good enough, at least for now. Unless I can figure out how to make a fountain in there, but I haven't figured that out yet. That's okay, though. It at least has the right spirit. So, let me know if you have any memories of Stormwind. I know I feel like I've been ignoring Horde players. I think it's just because Stormwind is done and so many of the other areas are done in a more human building style, which suits the Sims a lot better. I've been trying to figure out if there's any type of Horde builds I can do, and I will be trying them. But I guess the bias also for me is I do tend to play Alliance. I know everybody has their own preference, and Alliance is just sort of where I found my home. I do have Horde characters, but I will admit I don't spend as much time with them. Alright, now here we have finally started building the recreation center / the streets of Stormwind. And I wanted to make it, at least on the outside, look visually as close as I could get it to the streets of Stormwind. I definitely wanted to make sure that I had the tunnel that goes through towards the slaughtered lamb and all of those things. So I fussed a long time with this, and it's definitely the area that when the next character has some money to contribute to the recreation center, I'm going to be focusing on heavily the next time I add to this build. Roofing this was a pain. Roofing is always a pain in The Sims 4. I feel like that's one of the biggest weaknesses in The Sims is roofing. I spend a lot of time fussing with roofs, and I did cut most of that out because finally I just ended up with something that was close enough. It might not be perfect, but it was close enough for government work, even though I'm not working for the government. So yeah, if you're keeping an eye on the money up in the top corner there, I was almost at my 50,000 mark when I suddenly realized that I still hadn't done anything in the actual recreation center itself. I wanted to do a lot more decoration, but I also didn't want to use debug items, at least not yet. So I had to stop what I was doing with the outside and start looking at making a functional recreation center, which, can we just say that the items that you need in a recreation center are weird? I mean, why do you need a jungle gym and musical instruments, but not other things? I don't know. Arbitrary Sims rules, and you just kind of deal with them, but I think it turned out okay. Again, like I said, the inside of this build is very bare bones still, and the inside of this build might not actually feel very World of Warcraft like, because for this build at least, it's the outside vibes that I wanted to get right. Or at least as right as I could. Also, I need to have a talk with the Sims about why they don't have more roof colors. That was supposed to be a purple color, and it's not. I mean, it's not exactly not purple, but it's not exactly purple either. C'est la vie. So finally, almost done with the outside, just trying to make sure that I had the trim that sort of reminded me of Stormwind, and then getting a few more insidey bits. The stairs going down towards the rest of Lion's Rest, that's an area I'm going to have to keep working on later. If you stretch the steps all the way across, every time you switch from one aspect to the next, they don't stay there. So the steps don't go all the way across, which made me a little bit sad. I also thought I was going to be able to cheap out and just paint the floor down here, which would have been free, but that corner piece made it so that I couldn't, which made me very, very sad. But again, you just sort of get over it. I was able to knock out and make the planter boxes look a little bit better. Not perfect yet, and I did remember that there is a planter box up top as well, which I will get to here in a few minutes. But all in all, so far, I'm feeling it. Don't have a lion head to make the fountain into a fountain, but that head expanded kind of sort of worked. I did fuss around a lot with the plantings inside of that square, because I knew it had dirt floor and bushes, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get the bushes the way they are in World of Warcraft, so I started with just filling it with greenery. But then I realized that the bushes size down actually kind of worked, so I was kind of happy about that. And it definitely works better than having that completely filled with greenery. Then, of course, you've got to have the lamps. I would love to see a druid sitting on these lamps, but alas, not yet. I feel like when I finally get this all the way done, all I'm going to need is to put a Breel and a Looney into my game, and I'll be able to almost feel like I'm back in World of Warcraft. Overall, I think I'm actually pretty happy with this build. Is it perfect? No, nothing I ever do is perfect. But this is one that I feel ended up a lot closer than some others I've done. At least in spirit. Maybe not even only in spirit. I think this actually came out pretty close. I do need to put some more bushes and things into the planter boxes. That's going to have to wait until I have some more money in my Let's Play. Because, like I said, I suddenly realized that I was almost out of money and I had done nothing to this recreation center to make it into an actual recreation center. So I really quick tossed in a bathroom, which I think is going to make the lives of the tiny towners who are living there much, much better to actually have a bathroom and some showers. I mean, they've been living with a public outhouse for however long I've been playing Diedrich's story. And I've noticed a lot of times whenever they come over, they're a little bit on the stinky side. So hopefully having a bathroom with showers is going to help with that. And then I figured I would toss in just a little kitchen, just something so that they can actually feed themselves. So I just made a very basic and very cheap kitchen. Eventually, like I said, I'm going to upgrade the inside here to make everything look nicer. But for now, it should at least be functional, and that's a big help. I do like the fact that the lot requirements list everything that I needed, so I knew what I had to actually build in-game so that whenever I load into that lot, it stops saying that it was a sad abandoned lot because it didn't have any of the requirements met. Just a very basic, very cheap kitchen. I did remember lights. I even remembered putting walls and flooring in, which I'm kind of proud, and a wastebasket. So now it was just finding the cheapest things that I could that would work for the recreation center. So I had to put in some games. I found out that the dartboard does not count as a game, which seems rude. A couple pieces of fitness gear, which, again, a punching bag and the soccer ball do not count as fitness gear. So that was a big expenditure, putting a weight machine and a treadmill in there. Then you have to have 2 musical instruments. A microphone does not count, so I just slapped 2 guitars in there. And I think the last thing is the most weird one, and that is the jungle gym. But then again, it kind of just reminds me of Kulturas, so I'm cool with having a big pirate ship out back. I also remembered that I had kept everyone's tents which is a good thing. Everyone that lives in Exile's Reach has been living in tents since I started the series, and they're gonna have to live in tents for a while longer because I was pretty much out of money at this point. I know that I'm using the free build cheat right now, but the whole reason I kept this open the whole time was to watch my money, because I had exactly 50,000 simoleons to spend, and I wanted to make sure that I could spend as much as possible. Thankfully up here I was able to just go ahead and use the paint tool. I also ended up sacrificing this door because I didn't like it, and I remembered I wanted a lion statue. Then I realized that The Sims doesn't have lions, so I ended up putting a pig statue up there and just calling it good. After that, I just needed a couple of little rocks in place, and my Lion's Rest was pretty much complete. Then I just jumped back into the game and put the things that I had in my Sims personal inventory up, just to make it feel a little bit nicer and to give everybody a place to live. I think the lucky ones are the ones that are living in their tents inside of the building, although they don't have lights, so maybe they're not the lucky ones. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me babble and watching me build Lion's Rest. I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. Let me know what area I should work on next. Hit the thumbs up on your way out, and I'll talk to you later.